Hi, everybody. This is Aaron Locks with the National Academy of Athletics, and welcome to Talk, Teach, Play. Normally, when we have these sessions, we get to talk about kind of exciting ideas and thought processes and what's going on. Today's a little different, and you might feel a different energy, but there's a lot going on that I think we need to talk about when it comes to our children. And if you're looking in the news and you're seeing what's going on in life, there's some real challenges. So today's topic is really kind of like the elephant on the field, the thing that we're just not talking about. And I think we need to kind of dig in and have some real honest, open conversation. With me today is Stephanie Buechne. She is the Director of Physical Education for the National Academy of Athletics, and Kristen Ruprecht, who is the co-creator and owner of Noble One. And thank you both for being here today and sharing your time with us today.
Yeah, our pleasure.
You know, Kristen, we've had lots of conversations about lots of topics, going through all these sessions. I just would like to kind of start out with, you have been so in the forefront of discussing these issues and trying to get people to talk about what's going on. Can you kind of just enlighten us a little bit and kind of where we're going with this and your mindset? I know we've got a lot of things that we want to cover, but I really feel like I need you to take the lead on this today because you really just awareness, just in terms of awareness, we've been talking about it, but please share a little bit with this if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. First of all, I love just having these open discussions, and in my mind and actually my heart, my soul, everything about this topic, mental health awareness, it is literally why I created Noble One. It's just, I have a heart for people that have struggles with emotions and feelings and understanding how to process that. And I feel that it's time to just end and disrupt this whole stigmatized conversation, especially for our kids. You know, like when you think of the word mental health, I don't know how that ever became such a bad word. Mental is just literally our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings. But when you say mental health, it's amazing to me the conversations that I have, whether it's with kids, with parents, or with other organizations that I'm trying to spread this awareness. There's almost this pushback. And so I feel that where we're going with everything that's going on in the world, and we're seeing this crisis just grow and grow and grow, but it's not being talked about. So I love that, the elephant on the field in relation to kids in youth sports, and how can we bring more awareness to the coaches, the parents, and the kids. And the only way to do that is you have to bring it into the light. Right. You can't see things that are still in the dark. So you bring it into the light by talking about it and having the conversation.
What's nuts about it to me is, I remember when our only concern was, does my kid have ADHD? Right. And that was it. That was the thing. Right. And I know, Steph, you've got young ones that are coming up, but you've coached so long. And I know, I can imagine that how challenging is it for you as a coach to go out there, because you're not just thinking, okay, are they able to listen to me? Now there's deeper issues, right? So how challenging is that? And what are you finding that you're seeing when you're working with kids on that level? How's that working?
Yeah, it can be a challenge because not every kid is the same. Not every kid wants to talk about what's going on with them. Not every kid feels comfortable doing that. And I think as a coach, you see such a variety of kids, and been doing this for 10 years now. You really, I've been able to walk into a gym and get the feel of kind of what's going on, be able to pick out the kids that are a little bit more confident or, an extrovert and can either leave what they're dealing with outside, we talk about outside them, and focus on the kids that can't do that. And it's not even like a can or a can't. It's a lot of kids that are able to kind of leave it outside or whatever's going on with them. You see it come up eventually. And the kids that can't, you really see them struggle in the moment, and then they can't be present. So I think as a coach, you really want them to enjoy their physical activity, and coaching basketball, that's an outlet for them. That's something they enjoy to do, or that they enjoy doing. But there's a lot of that struggle out there, with mental health. And Kristen, like you were saying, you bring that up and you say it how it is like that. And it's taken in such a negative context. So I think as being a coach, it's how do you address that and, you know, talk to these kids without making them feel like you're diagnosing them in a sense, because they don't like that word and they want to be able to, you know, you want to get them to open up and just be present in the moment.
So Kristen, when we talk about that, you know, part of it is, you know, and again, we've had these conversations, and by the way, if you haven't already, click to subscribe to this channel, because obviously there's going to be more conversations like this and help you out as we go through this process. Because, you know, one of the things that I think is also, you're talking about it is just parent to parent, you know,
Totally.
peer to peer. You know, how do you have that conversation with another parent? And it's not so much, well, your kid's doing this. It's, hey, my kid's this. What's going on, right? But Kristen, you know, one of the things we've talked about before is observing signs and symptoms and that stuff, right? So without getting to the stigma, because we're not going to use the S word right now, right? But starting with the signs and the symptoms, right? How can you help coaches? How can you help people that are teachers, that are parents, to kind of recognize these things? You got some ideas around that might be able to help us out?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think so as far as like when I think of like the start of a school year or this, you know, the start of a sports program season or something like that, you know, parents obviously have their own intuitive knowing about their kids. They're around them all the time. And then you take coaches, teachers, it's like you have to establish a baseline. And again, that comes back to awareness, right? So you meet the team, you've got your team for the season, and you have to be aware of sort of where are these kids. And it's not just about jumping into the game and teaching the skills, but getting to know those kids sort of on and off the field. You got to establish that baseline. So then you'll start to notice changes, right? Like, let's say, Michael usually was really outgoing, but now he seems like he's kind of disengaged and he's not, or his energy level has changed on the field, or he's not, being the team player that he was. And it may not be about the sport. It may be something probably most often that's going on in his emotional life. So that's the awareness. So noticing the signs, like, are they disconnected? Are they isolating? Are they not doing the things that they would normally do to engage? It's almost like the personality has changed or shifted. And then there's also just an intuitive and an energetic knowing about those kids. So it's always looking really for behavior changes, and then also picking up on things that they might be saying, like little cues that you might hear where are they lashing out at somebody because they've got, built up anger? That can be a sign. Are they, did they mention something about, a situation that happened at home or something that happened with a friend? I mean, it's the spectrum of what kids will hold within themselves and not talk about is so big and so wide. So it's really just signs and symptoms are always typically changes in behavior, changes in normal daily activity. That's what
Right now they're saying that, anxiety is the biggie, right? But there's other ones. There's the psychotic, there's mood changes, all these different things. Steph, I know we talked about this. I'd love to share about just when you go to your team, right? You can't necessarily treat everybody the same, right? I mean,
yeah, totally. And, going off, and that goes hand in hand with going off of Kristen, what you were just talking about in terms of, catching those signs and symptoms. And like you said, you're not being able to coach every kid the same way, but recognizing it when you're a coach is just important as recognizing it when you're, a teacher or even a parent. Every time I go through a high school season, it's between November and March, if we make it that far into playoffs, which is like 4.5, 5 months sometimes. And so during that time, I talk with my assistant coaches about it. As coaches, we're actually spending just as much time, if not more time, with these kids on our team because they go to school, they're at school, they go to practice right after, they're with us for 2 hours. When we travel to games, you got to count the travel time to get there. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's a few hours. Then you're there at the game for a few hours and then you're coming back. So you could even be spending, 5, 6, 7 hours with these kids, 2, 3, 4 times a week. And so I think to notice, that kid that's normally, not so aggressive on the floor, that's all of a sudden, fouling really hard or crying at something that they normally wouldn't cry at, or they just lash out kind of in frustration. I think it's so important for coaches to pay attention to that and be able to get to know their team, but then also not come into, the gym and say, okay, I'm going to do this. This is how I coach and this is how I'm going to do it. You really need to get to know each individual player to maximize their potential and the team's potential. And then also make sure that you're there for them. Because I've just, with my experience with coaching kids of all ages, it's just when they feel like you're there for them and you support them and you're coaching them and you want the best for them in the sport as well as in real life, you just see a happier kid and a more confident kid.
Yeah.
So I think it just, as a coach, I just really want to, if I could tell every coach, the biggest message is you just don't realize the impact that you have on kids. And like I said, sometimes we're spending more time with them than their parents even. So I think the communication that you have with the kid, but then also the communication with the parents, there's that fine line of talking to parents or not, but, being able to make that whole wheel turn and see something, I think parents appreciate it, the kids really appreciate it. And
Well, I'll tell you this right now. I know for a fact, for me, if my kids are playing sports, I need to pay more attention to be more supportive of the coach or the teachers that are working with my kids, because I have to be in tune to know what's going on. Like you said, there's no doubt in my mind. If I told my son that there's a black wall over there, he'd go, yeah, Dad, whatever. And coach said, hey, Mason, sprint over the black wall. He goes, Dad, I got to go. There's a black wall. I'm like, I just said that, right? It's totally true. That's the way it is. So I think as parents, with your teachers, with your coaches, or anybody that's spending quality time with the kids, stay in tune. Not only that, I can remember times where I was struggling with my son. Maybe we were having a communication problem or whatever the case is, right? Man, talk to that teacher or talk to that coach and come up with something that can be kind of a win-win. Check-in is such a big one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's interesting as I think through the thought process, and Kristen, coming back to you, what is your thought about how does a coach, a teacher, a parent, because the reality is not everybody thinks it's okay to have those conversations, but I think at this point we need to have those conversations. So how do you check in? How do you suggest that coaches or parents or teachers start the process of doing that? Because I would imagine people that are listening to us are kind of going, yeah, it all sounds good, but how do I even do that? Right.
Yeah. I mean, as I was listening to you talk, Steph, about, you have such a great level of awareness anyway. And so you're a great example of that, but you have to go into any situation, whether you're a parent or a teacher, like you said, or a coach, you're building like a family. You're spending, you have a responsibility with these kids, and it's so important. And so I would say presence. If you're not present, you're going to miss the signs. You're going to miss the opportunity to connect with the kids. So that would be, you've got to be present within yourself. So that means, like, if you're a coach and you're coming from your work and your stuff, you've got to be present and say, okay, it's almost like you compartmentalize. Now I'm going to spend the next 2 hours with these kids, and I'm setting an example and they need me. So I'm going to set aside and compartmentalize my day and my stress and be present for them. That's huge. And then, the same thing with parents. It's like we're all just rushing right now. We've got, our phones and our computers and our electronics even more heightened now, because this is the world we're having to live in without the social interaction. So I would say that be present first, and then you'll be able to be aware and pick up the signs.
It's funny. I do a program with my staff sometimes, and I train in on some of the trainings that I've done. And I was just thinking about it, just popped in my head. It's a great, so I love Post-its. Those that know me, I'm a Post-it guy, because ideas are always flowing. Steph laughing at me because I know she's seen them everywhere, right?
They're all over.
But think about this. What I do is when we go to whatever it is, when I was refereeing, I bring Post-its and I say, okay, write down the 2 things that are going to keep you from being present right now. Whatever those things are, stress with whatever, or homework or money, whatever it is, take the Post-it and stick it on the wall. right? Or on the refrigerator. And then let's have dinner. And we don't have to worry about those items right now because we know that we can be present here, right? And then when we're done, if you want, you can take it. And I used to joke with some of the guys, say, you can take my problems with you if you want them. I'm done with them, but just the awareness of that when you go in and literally checking that off. I think that might be a really cool way. I know that there's some things going on now where we've seen where parents are literally having kids, everybody put the electronics in the box and putting it away during the meal, right? Little things like that where it's a distinct action and it's a finite amount of time. I don't know about you, but my kids, if I said take the phone away from them, they'd probably go get the guns, right? But it's just for a short time. We're just going to have dinner and we're going to unplug. But that means we got to do the same thing, and that's a big part of it. I think.
Well, Aaron, that's interesting that you're saying that because as a coach, sorry, I just wanted to, so as a coach, I actually have a rule with my high school team.
Yeah.
You're off your phones an hour, 50 minutes to an hour before you need to get on the court. So we're sitting as a team, we're present, if we're at a tournament, we're watching the game going on before us. It's getting into that mental place. With my younger kids, it's minutes coming in. My fifth graders that have, phones and tablets and all that, it's you have to put those away 30 minutes prior to the game. And then as a coach, if practice is at 3, I'm in the office at 2:30. So I don't just run in and, start practice, right away. Kristen, like you were saying, it's, I need that time to also, focus on what I need to do and say anything that I'm dealing with, I need to leave that here. This is my job for the next, this is mentally where I need to be present for the next 2 hours. So I'm always early just so I can, if I'm going through anything or anything stressing me in my life, it's, practice what you preach. It's get in early, focus, put the phone away. Maybe I'll write down a practice plan, change it 5 times to get myself present and in the moment to be able to be my best self. So I encourage that with my kids.
So planning and right. And so if we're coaching, you got a plan, right? We know if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So Kristen, I know that Noble One has a system or an emotional processing method, right? Can you share that with us? I think that would be really good. It feels like that's a good time to kind of put that in there.
It's top secret. Top secret.
Hey, make sure you guys are paying attention right now. I know you're going to subscribe to this channel so you can get more.
Yeah.
Click on that little button down there, but go for it. Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I love that you asked that. And yeah, I'll go through the basics of it. So again, this is the foundation of what we do as social and emotional coaches is we teach about feelings, emotions, belief systems, how to process through that, and in the end, how to express what you need. If we could teach every child that from an early age and then just keep building on that, it literally sets the intention for them to understand how to navigate through life by processing emotions. So the Noble processing method, we use the acronym Noble, and N meaning notice. So notice the feeling that comes in. What are you feeling? Be able to define that. And we actually have a Noble feelings chart that we go through with our kids because they don't always know, like they know your basics, like I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy, but they don't even say that. You ask a kid, how are you? And they say, I'm fine, I'm good, right? So N is notice the feeling. O is observe the emotion that's creating. Are you starting to feel anxious? Are you getting depressed? Are you going down a trail that isn't really you? So observation, again, you kind of step out of yourself and look at the emotion that's going on. B is the belief system. What are you believing? What's the negative track that you're telling about yourself? Oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, I failed, or oh, it's a belief. And it's usually stemming from something in the past, right? That you've had an experience with that felt negative. So now that belief system's going off, right? Well, L is like, you've got to lean into that. You've got to lean or learn what is true about that. Is that true? Is what I'm telling myself about this experience really true? And then finally, the E is about expression, being able to finally process through the experience and then express what you need. I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. I think I need to make a list, or I think I need to talk to a friend, or I think I just need to have some alone time. So once we teach kids that, and then you have them, we have different ways of having them journal through it, having them talk through it, they start to do it, and they start to catch themselves. And that is the awareness that we talked about in the beginning. So that's at the core. Like once we teach kids that, sky's the limit. But so many of us, even adults, we're walking around not even, we just carrying all this stuff because we never processed it.
Yeah. You gotta find a way to be in the nowhere else and be right there and really pay attention. The signs and all that as well. When I was officiating and coaching and listening to the guy, a lot of trainings I got, we use the word like-minded. Some people say being on the same page, right? In your case, with the noble system that you have for what you're doing for National Cab Athletics, right? We have certain systems that are there. But when we're dealing with the kids, one of the things that I think is so important is that right now I feel like the kids' confidence is basically shot because they're in a place where literally they're in a sports analogy, they're playing defense instead of offense, right? They're literally waiting to see what happens to them, waiting to see what they're told to do, and then they're reacting to that. And a lot of them don't have the skill set, the training, the experience to deal with what's being thrown at them, and is it real? Is it not real? How do I feel? Is it not okay to feel that way? What's the stigma? Wait a second. I can't say, I'm tough, in the old days when you banged your head, it was just a bell ringer and get back in there. Right. It's not like that anymore. From a coaching standpoint, Steph, how do you help kids to get the confidence, not just in playing the sport, but also to be able to communicate that? I guess trust is part of it, right? With you as a coach, how do you build that with your individual players and your team? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Is really thinking of just just kids these days and what they're going through, and just thinking about that they're playing defense right now and they're reacting to what they're being told to do or what's going on in the world around them, and some of them are really struggling. So I think as a coach, I mean, trust is a really big one. And I think that I've realized a lot of kids actually trust their coaches, sometimes more than other people, and will open up and have those conversations. So I think as a coach, you need to be prepared for that. I think that you also should encourage it, because if there's anyone that I think that can really, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, be able to help a kid through these tough times, be able to navigate that. A coach is someone that as a coach, you can have those conversations with them, but then you're also on that outlet right now, practice or be in a game and offer that physical outlet and be there present. Just checking in with them and be that sounding board as someone that they had talked to before or trusted in before, I think is huge. So, but then getting them in person and having that, physical activity possibly, it's important as a coach because you're able to connect with them. You're able to, just really, like, I don't know, I'm just reiterating, just really giving them an outlet and giving them someone they can trust into.
Well, and the thing that you said, I think is so important is that the physical side of it, I'm even thinking as a parent or a coach, just playing catch with your kids. Sometimes it just lets the air out of the balloon and it's stressed and we're unplugged and we're engaging and we're connecting or whatever it is. I know that they said that board games is up over 400%. Everybody's playing board games again, right? Dice and sorry or whatever it is. And it gets your mind engaged in other stuff, but it also re-engages kind of going forward, which I think is such an important piece.
We call that, like, it's like a pivot. When we use the word pivot as a code word, like whenever you're in a talk track in your head and you just feel stuck, pivot and go do something else. And most of the time, physical activity is one of the best things you can do. I mean, just think about, like, when you go out, you're like, I'm just going to go for a walk. And you get back and you're like, I should have done that an hour ago. Just that fresh air and that change, it's just puts you into a whole different thought process.
Absolutely. Well, I want to try to uplift as we leave this a little bit, because this has been a pretty heavy topic, and I know there's a lot of kids out there that really need something. I'm big on showing our own vulnerability. I know we've talked about that, but I think, to me, the story, right? Because when we have that opportunity to share a story based, for whatever reason, it tends to be stickier with those we teach. I tend to tell stories about, what happened when Magic Johnson did this or whatever, and they hear that and they relate to that, right? It's nice to be able to name drop, right? Or, how to do that. Kristen, when you guys teach, I know sharing stories is big, right? I mean, that's one part of it, because that's the reality of it, right? So what do you suggest around that? Sharing, is it sharing their story? Is it sharing stories? Is it parents sharing stories? Tell me a little more about that. I'm interested.
Yeah, I think, kids especially aren't always, some will, some won't. It just depends, aren't always going to share their story right away. So you have to build and earn that level of trust with them. And I think some unique ways to do it that we find is, first of all, when I share my own story, it's amazing how people but they'd be like, wow, I didn't realize that she went through that, right? Because we go out in the world and we appear that we have it all together, and people would never suspect that, I've had these dark moments. So you share your own story, because I'm comfortable doing that now. That allows other people to connect with me. And then another thing, and I do this for my kids, is when I see my kids like struggling with something and I know they're not going to talk about it, I'll just share one of my stories where I overcame something similar. So that's one way. And then another thing you can do is, like, as a coach, like, pick a film or a movie clip or something and have them watch it. So you're doing it through the eyes of someone else. Or we'll do it with like a visual where we'll put up a picture of a girl or a boy that looks, well, what do they look like? They look anxious. They look depressed. What might be going on with that person? So you're helping them be aware, and they're talking about it, but not necessarily yet through their eyes. You're kind of building that comfort level. And then usually when one kid starts to share, like in a group setting, it's this aha, like, I had no idea. I feel that way too. And then the gates open.
Right.
Yeah. As a coach, I do team check-ins with my team, and we do it after a practice, and it's once a month, sometimes twice, but it's to get that feeling, getting everyone on the same page. I try to do it with my high school team. I tried to do it around like big test weeks, for example, that I knew in the academic side, because I knew that was at least one thing, regardless if you're a straight A student or you struggle to get that C or B, that you're all in the same boat of dealing with that. I knew there was they too, if they didn't want to open up, but that they could share, that would probably, transfer onto the court. And why you seem kind of checked out of practice, or why maybe you couldn't, go as hard that day. So I try to do that too. But with the stories, I think as coaches, that's important too, because it's, it's like, how do you put your team through a really hard practice, or see them struggling through a drill, or, they have to run, 5 suicides in a certain amount of time, which is like line to line. And then they're looking at you like, well, you don't know how I feel. You don't know how hard this is. You don't know what you're asking for me. So I think that, as a coach, being able to recognize that with your team and be able to say, hey, when I played in college or in high school, my sophomore year, but then also on the emotional side, like, hey, when I was, a junior in high school, I was going through this, and this is how it made me feel on the court. They're like, whoa, you actually went through real life stuff, and you know exactly, or very similar, how I feel with what I'm going through. And that's what that, like, telling stories, being able to connect to your team, being able to read them and know when the time and place is for that. Right. You just see a huge difference. It's the trust, it's the buy-in, it's the, wow, we're all in this together, type of feeling. So
I love that. I think that's key. That you don't, like, we always look at like, oh, I'm the adult, you're the kid, so I'm the all-knowing. Like, let's level the playing field, right?
Totally. Yeah.
100%.
You know, we have to sometimes as parents or coaches realize that even though we're on a pedestal, whether we want to be or not, right, in some levels, if we can bring ourselves down to their level so they see it, right? I know we've talked this before, but I use feel, felt, found, and I really think it's important with kids particularly. Man, you know, I see how you feel that way. You know what I mean? I remember I felt that way when I was in high school or I was in whatever, and I was stressed and this and that. But you know what I found by doing this, it helped me be prepared for what's coming, because ultimately I want to shift our kids. I want to shift the mindset to what's going on right now is not permanent, right? Everything's temporary. And yet the way that most people can find a way through things is through experience, right? It's experiential learning. And part of that experience is having the conversation, trusting those, right? And the hardest part is, as a parent, is when your kid says something to you. I mean, again, story based. My son, who's 18 years old, tells me, "Hey, Dad, I want to go on a road trip, and I've got 4 days off of work." So we literally left Wednesday night at 9 o'clock and got in the car, and we drove on down from Northern California all the way through San Diego, visited 14 beaches in 3.5 days. It was a cool experience, but I had to literally go stop and buy sunglasses, because he was telling me stuff that literally I was not 100% ready for. So I had to kind of make sure that I wasn't reacting in kind of a strange way, because you know, they start to tell you life experience. You go, oh my gosh, here we go. But okay, hey, at least we're wrapping up on something a little more positive and fun. What I'd love to do is make sure, Steph, if someone wants to reach out to you to find out maybe some tips or ideas or thought process, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I mean, I think I'm listed on the National Academy of Athletics.com on the website. I'm also featured on, you know, the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, but also for personally, you can always email me at stephanie@naofa.us. And I'd love to connect with you and answer any questions.
Sounds great. And Kristen, how about if they want to get some access and information with Noble One, what would they do?
Yeah, our website has probably the most information, which is nobleones.org. You can also email us, connect@nobleones.org. And, you know, I just want to say too, like, we just talked about, you know, sharing stories. And I really, really encourage anyone that listens to this, if it's touched you at some level, whether you're a coach, you're a parent, you have a kid that's struggling, or you feel like maybe your organization or you know somebody or some idea went off in your head, share your story, right? Reach out to us, connect with us. We're trying to build a community here. That's the whole point, and that's how we're going to serve the youth. So share your stories. We'll keep sharing ours.
Love it. So on behalf of the three of us and everybody at the National Academy of Athletics, this is Talk, Teach, Play. If you want to find more information, obviously visit nationalacademyofathletics.com. You can catch us on Facebook and Instagram and, you know, all the regular social channels. Be sure to click to subscribe if you want additional information. We're putting these together. And, you know, my thought process, which you hear a lot from athletics, is next man up, so to speak, or woman up, as the case may be. But to me, I also really believe that each one reach one. Back to your point, you know, each one reach one. And I love the fact that we're able to spend this time together and we're reaching out. And I know that we're going to have a positive impact on people. So everybody out there, stay safe, and always remember, especially with your kids, to remind them to play hard and have fun. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.